8th grade.
Well, and our kids that are at Z may well be above Z.
Well, but what about some of your kids in Achieve? They've got to be like above. What's your highest?
I don't know, like Lexile?
Yeah, probably.
We definitely have some that exceed.
Yeah.
I know that.
Far exceed a year above.
Right.
Okay. Well, here's what.
Like the kids that have the career readiness or whatever.
Yeah.
College and career readiness.
So they're at least a year above, if not more. So, okay. Yeah. We kind of want to make that point when I ask about the range of kids, you know. But it's nothing staged. What I really thought, the reason I thought you would be awesome, and this is not to put you on the spot, but it's, there have been times where we've had these conversations, and just what each of you have said just is exactly what other teachers need to hear. Instead of going to a Fontes and Canal, like whatever, we want to hear from mentor teachers.
People really doing it.
And what's the transition from being a directive teacher with a base on it to the sort of the guide on the side is in the workshop model? How has that sort of changed you, changed the way you look at kids, changed the way you know them, like just those kinds of, we want to have a discussion. Yeah. It's not like right answer, wrong answer, but I can tell you what I'm, like, kind of what I was thinking was like, how do you feel working in the workshop has changed you as a teacher? And I don't want any answer that's on page 79 of Jan Richardson. I want to know how you feel. You know, because we're working with a group of teachers that are resistant to workshop. They want to give 20 books out to the 7th graders, and they're all going to read this novel, and they're all going to get the end, they're going to take the test. Is that right?
Yes.
Am I being unfair? Okay. Are you taking
I know what I can say.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll let you
She can take
think.
clips. That's
Because
fine.
what I want is, I don't want any, I want us to have a discussion. I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be a thing in there. You're going to have guided reading. You're going to have their notebooks. You're going to have whatever, okay? How has doing the workshop model surprised you in terms of understanding readers' needs? You know, is there anything, I'm going to ask about the range of levels. Do you think the workshop accommodates all levels? And, or would you rather be doing one book for all? Okay.
No.
See, that's what we need to get. It's just like, oh, for God's sake, okay. You know, that's just what we want. That's just what we want. And because what we're going to use it for is a springboard to say to them, we've had a year of in-service now with the middle school. What's getting in your way? What really is getting in your way? That's what we want. We want to start with
Materials? I mean, I'm just guessing, but maybe, do they have the materials?
Well, it's much easier though if you, they're going to say, I only have 45 minutes.
Okay, well,
So, but none of us ever have enough time. Truly the way it's supposed to be set up is a 90-minute block, and it's going to be moving more toward that next year. But with a really great, like, model of like mainstream teacher with an interventionist for 90 minutes where they come in and they can do guided reading and they can do the whole workshop. It's really awesome. But they're used to doing middle school. This is the vocabulary, this is it, study it, and never like giving kids the time to read and write on their own and having faith that they're going to be productive is hard. And
I think that's what surprised me when I went to 5th grade is, you know, we set up the workshop model, and then the students know that they have to do a letter every week and do their poetry work and their word work, and they do it. I mean, independently, because I'm busy with the guided reading groups, and it surprised me that, I don't know what I expected them to be fooling around, I think, but they get things done.
Yeah, which is really, you know, all the research says.
But I didn't trust them at the beginning to do it.
Yeah, see, that's what we want to hear, and also you don't trust yourself in the beginning, you know. And I mean, when I look at, and I don't know how much of this should go in the video, but you last year, your transition in terms of like going from 2nd grade to
3rd grade,
3rd grade to 5th grade, and then all of a sudden, just like being really a master in my you know, really, I mean, just so much ease and such a community and such an immersion, and then And then you coming from 4th to 5th, but being a math, you know, really being,
Right.
not teaching language arts, even
No, I
though you
didn't.
had the experience in your back, but falling into it, going in and seeing you doing guided reading, and or all of you together doing a read aloud, like, there's just something beautiful about that community, and that's because of what you guys have done. And so, you know, you're experts at this. I mean, there's always more to learn, but the way that flow goes, and the way you can take a group of kids back and do a level L, or you can take a group back and do a level Z, it's pretty phenomenal.
Even just when you said, oh, would you rather do this or go back to all from the same book, my mind was like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine doing that now. And I remember when we made that transition, when I was in 3rd grade, Karen and I started playing around with the Daily 5. It is scary to let go of all that, but I can't imagine going back to like, get out your Imaginate book and we're all going to read Wolf Island, and half the kids are bored or it's too hard for them, and just, I don't know. It's just seeing that.
That's what we need to
Well,
hear.
the other thing is,
Yeah,
like,
that's what we need to hear.
when you have everybody reading the same novel, everybody doesn't get a chance to participate in the discussions. When you're in that little group of 5 or 6 students, then, like, I feel like I speak to every kid every day about their book and what they're reading.
Yeah.
And with the whole class, I don't think I could.
Yeah.
Because when you said, would you rather go back to everybody reading the same book, that overwhelms me. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I going to reach everybody now?
Yeah.
And even though we split up our kids, one of the students I have now, Taylor, you had last time we did reading groups, and I was noticing things with her, and I went over to Jackie, who doesn't have her now in reading group. I said, did you notice this, this, and this? And she's like, yeah, I noticed that. So even though you don't see every student, because we mix them all up, we still have these open, really good open conversations about what you see. And yeah, she's missing words, but her comprehension is amazing, and she can look really deeply into the book. So is it her speech? Is it this? Is it that? And yeah, it's really good. Which you wouldn't get that in a whole group, because she's not a student that would stick out as an IEP, and she's not really, really high.
No, but she's a teacher pleaser, so she's going to do her work and just go along.
So you notice things about her that you wouldn't in a whole group setting.
Cool. Now I feel like I just wish we would have taped that whole thing. Looking at kids' abilities and, you know, strengths and weaknesses. You have some high-level readers. Do you see them in guided reading?
Yes. Not every day.
Not every day. Why not?
Because the time mostly, but also they don't need the teacher guidance. Like the lower levels, the L, we see those every day. But the kids at Y see once a week. But then they see the gifted teacher once a week as well.
Okay.
So they
So
still
really
do
they
get
get
two.
Well, tell me this. At first, was it hard to let go of them?
Yes. I
Okay.
remember last year, especially when we did that with the gifted teacher last year, and I thought, how are they only going to see a teacher 1 or 2 days a week? And that was scary for me, because I thought that I was going to fail them somehow. They weren't going to get something from me, or there would be, you know, lack of communication between myself and the gifted interventionist. But it's worked out. I mean, it worked out last year, and then we have somebody new this year, and she's jumped right on board on it, and it's, you know.
You're seeing growth. Do you have evidence of their growth other than your meeting with them at the guided reading table? How do you monitor that?
I mean, even their writing. So in their writers' their binders that they do every week, and their language arts tic-tac-toe, the evidence they're pulling from their books has improved.
The intervention specialist gives them added assignments to do with their book, like character studies or plot evaluation, you know, higher level things
And
that
so
they're ready
you can
for. So
see
they're
in
doing
there-
more.
But you can see every week as you evaluate their notebook that they are working without you. They're making that growth without you.
You know, when we do, I do a lot with my lower groups, a lot of modeling. So I'll do a lot of modeling with the language calendar, but then I carry that through at my teacher table with my lowest group. Every week we do our focus. So this week we were doing a prediction. I did. So I did it that we did a character prediction with the One School One Book. We're doing a language calendar, And then with my lowest group, we also did it together at teacher table with the teacher table review. So they get a double dose. So they'll have it in language calendar, and then they have it with me at teacher table.
Okay.
Whereas those higher students who you can tell that they have those skills, if I see that they're struggling, if I had the higher group this time around, I could still model that at teacher table. But what we've seen is they're getting that first time through or the second time through in a whole group, and then they don't need it in the small group the next time around.
So, but you have evidence of that,
Yes.
so that
And
you
their
know that
notebooks.
they can move on to something else.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that language calendar? Because generally speaking, language calendar is a part of a primary curriculum, but the 5th grade here, the blended learning community, has really made it a focal point. So can you just talk about how you organize it, and also what value you really see in it?
Alright, I see the language calendar as modeled writing. So when I'm standing up there and writing the language calendar for that day, I'm thinking out loud about what I'm thinking about as a writer, and like word choice, punctuation, like the mechanics, or like when I struggle with how to spell a word, I do that out loud so that they can see that writers do that, and then reread, like write a sentence and then reread it, say, does that make sense? And so it's modeled writing. And then we set up a schedule for the week. Remember Monday?
So we do our roots in STEM, like every week we do a Greek or Latin roots, and so Mondays we introduce it. So Monday language calendar is always, what does that root mean? And then we pick one of our words and we use it in a sentence. And so then that's up on the calendar for them to reference, because they're going to work on that all week. And then Tuesday is always a summary. So we do poetry every week, so it's the summary of their poetry. And then Wednesday is typically our language arts tic-tac-toe, so our skill that we want them to apply at their teacher table book or they read the self-book, we model what that would look like as a whole group. And then Thursdays and Fridays is typically like a convention, so punctuation or capitalization or grammar, or another skill we've seen that they've struggled with. So, we noticed that they were not doing well on opinion writing, like even after a couple weeks. So we spent a couple more weeks, not necessarily at teacher table, but in that whole group setting, modeling it, because we noticed from looking at grading their tic-tac-toe that they still weren't doing very well with it. And it was something that we thought was important because they needed to find the evidence. So we just, the Thursday, Friday, we have a schedule, but it's, what do we find from looking over their things from the week before, what at teacher table, we'll talk. And if there's something glaring in mine that's not in theirs, then I can kind of take the lead on what I need to do. Something
It could even be like a word work kind of thing. Like we were noticing that when they were writing, they would, when they came to the end of a line, if they were in the middle of a word, they just broke it anywhere and started. And so we went over about how it has to be broken, where a syllable break would be. So we modeled that, or even something real spelling, like double a consonant before you add ing, or those kinds of things.
Cool. Well, that's a really good example of where you have the gradual release of responsibility, because you're modeling it. You're talking about taking the skill, such as opinion writing or summary, to the teacher table, and then you're seeing evidence in their notebook with their tic-tac-toe board of whether they're applying it independently, and then it cycles right back to where you model it again.
Modeled, guided, independent.
And then if they need it, it's remodeled.
Remodeled again.
Okay, now if you remodel it again and you have kids that don't need it, are you just expecting more depth in their work?
And I know that when I'm modeling it, I will if I know that there are some kids that are kind of above that, I will maybe add a little bit more into my modeling, so I kind of extend it for them, or I'll verbally say, maybe here you would have added, and I'll put that sentence in, but I'll make it known you didn't have to put that sentence in there. So if you had this, this, and this, that would be good, but if you wanted to extend it a little bit, you could add these sentences in, or you could put these words in to make, to add interesting words. So you kind of extend it verbally, or I can take a small group and do that.
Or I've used student work as the model. Like if someone has a really stupendous poetry summary. I've used that for the,
Oh, to put on the
the
calendar.
model. I have once or twice.
Awesome. Do you see kids visiting the calendar at all?
Yes.
Using it as a tool? Or said anything about it is like running records or assessing the kids. So I don't know if you
Do you
want.
want?
So
Do
can
you
have
want
that.
to, or what do you think? I mean,
When you asked a question about seeing the poetry and the research directing, like linking it to comprehension, all of our kids are moving like through the next step, and so through the books, and so when we see that and we can see them moving even on like our assessment wall, or just like, oh, we get to take from the next bin of books because you guys moved up a level for keeping that same group for a little bit, they feel so successful. And you can see they're like, oh, I'm on this letter next, because we don't make a big deal about the letters at all,
But they
but
know
they
the
catch
letters are
on,
the back of the
and they
book.
might not necessarily know, oh, this means I'm here, this means I'm there, but just saying, oh, I get to go to the next letter, they feel good about it.
Yeah.
And they like to having those discussions of, I kind of let them know what their options are to read, and they kind of have a discussion of, it goes back to what you're saying, the interest, maybe a whole group really, really wants to read something about sports, and so we try and find that, and then already they're kind of hooked and they're ready to go into the book. But seeing their growth, where when you have the whole group all in book, it's harder to see that.
Right.
That expectation for them to meet, that is so hard. They don't get to see those baby steps getting there, where in this they get to see, oh, I may not be here yet, but I'm getting there, and I'm moving along. So that's been great, and
well, it's that platform also that allows a learner to take a risk because there's success built in. And
yeah, they're not, I find that they're very willing to take those risks, and we set up that community, and they feel comfortable talking, they feel comfortable sharing, they feel comfortable putting themselves out there, knowing that their classmates and their teachers are gonna be there to help and support them if they don't quite have it, to help them get to that point.
are you pleased with their independent reading? The way they're choosing?
I feel like I know what each student is reading on their own, because through the letters that they write to me each week, and then I respond back to them. And I think that I've always felt before when I taught, 4th grade, I never was really sure if students were reading independently, and I'm sure there were students that never in their life finished a whole book, like a chapter book,
Right.
At the 4th grade level. But now I'm quite confident to say that everybody is reading something and has had that feeling of finishing a larger book,
Yeah.
because it's kind of new for some kids to be in a chapter.
Well, and that accountability where they're writing to you and reporting every week, that's awesome. Well, I want to say in concluding, when you look at the conditions that are of learning that have been researched about the environment and the community that supports growing literacy, it surely is present in your classrooms. I mean, in your blended, just the modeling, the immersion, the risk-taking, the ability to make choices, that you're accepting you're accepting their effort to try something, baby steps, and then not saying, you have to be at this level, I'm sorry, you're here, and always that invites failure, but you're saying, you're here, but we're gonna go here, and then you're here, it's a stair, and that's part of the researched condition of learning that allows people to actually learn, so.
Because they're gonna feel successful somewhere.
Right.
Where when you have that whole group one book, there are kids that are never gonna feel successful in that.
Yeah.
And it is a big part of letting go, and it's really scary as a teacher. And I know for some it's scarier than others, and I don't want to go back. I feel like I put so much into this, and I believe in it, and creating that community in your classroom is so important, and like you said, giving up that release that you have to believe that they can do it.
Trust.
It's that trust part.
Well, which is a condition that's documented. Teachers that actually give the responsibility to children. It's not just giving the responsibility, it's actually an element of trust on the teacher's level that the child will make the choices and engage with stamina toward the goal. And the goal's clear.
But there's time to put it, like, you can't just change tomorrow and say, okay, they're going to do all these things during reading workshop. I mean, we taught each thing we do during reading workshop, we taught that individually over a couple of days. This is how you do word work or whatever. This is how you do poetry, and practice that and practice that and practice that. And now it's all together, all the parts. But that took a long time at the beginning. But so you put that time in, and then it feels slow at the beginning, but so you can move fast now.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And you kind of hate to let go of them.
Right, we come where we want.
Yes. So, thanks.